This is Metallic Penguin, and this is sort of a review of the demo for Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. This was a free demo. I wasn't given this by the publisher, and I in fact encountered a bug, and that's basically what this review is kind of about. Also, one of the pet peeves I've got with gaming in general is games, to me, like, these game companies are really comfortable with shipping out broken games and then patching them later, and that's kind of annoying. Anyway, here's the review. I have a question. How do you like your Star Trek? Do you like it rendered in the Clausewitz engine, where you can see the entire spread of an empire as it spans across the galaxy? Or do you like it drilled down to one ship and one captain as she courageously, and I think foolishly, tries to take her crew home on their mishaps through the Delta Quadrant? I mean, it's a question. It's a matter of taste. It's like shoes for which occasion. And I can see pluses or minuses to both. This is sort of a review of Star Trek Voyager, A Voyage Across the Unknown. For those of you who don't know, Star Trek Voyager was a show that aired in the 90s for approximately 9 years. It was a story about a ship captained by a lady from Indiana who loved her coffee black and somehow managed to stitch together a crew always on the edge of mutiny as they crossed through Borg space on a voyage back into Federation space. It's my second favorite flavor of Star Trek, and Star Trek is part of the reason why I got into Stellaris. Not because of the Star Trek mods, but because I like sci-fi. I say this is sort of a review because I tried to play the game and it's soft lock 3 out of 4 times. Apparently, there's a way you can get to the game where it gets you past the first basically galaxy screen after it teaches you the basic mechanics of gradually pushing your mouse button to engage the system, etc., and so on. I only got there once and had to stop to go do something else. But when I couldn't recreate that became the reason I wanted to do this video instead of having a review of the actual game. Yes, it's a free demo. Yes, the core mechanics are kind of this mix between Stellaris and, for lack of a better word, this sort of RimWorld management craze that a lot of games seem to shoehorn in. There's even apparently a crafting phase, which of course, obviously, in a game based off the show Star Trek Voyager, makes all the sense in the world because, spoiler alert, on a decades-old show, they spent a lot of time crafting Borg technology, which apparently, again, much to the game's credit, will come into the play of the game. What I was able to see was that your choices do matter, and I think that's important. You assemble the away party. Sometimes things happen to one member, sometimes they happen to the other member. I think that's really cool. I also think it's cool that there's a fatigue stat and that each party member has essentially pluses and minuses they bring to the table. Again, I think this is cool. But I don't want to skirt around the wider issue here, which is the game can soft lock. In a world where open world games mean that you can get around to doing what you want to do when you want to get around to it. I think that's important. I think it's really important to say you have to hit the mark in certain areas if you would like to progress the game. Otherwise, apparently, that just won't happen. Now, I ask a question. How do you like your sci-fi games? Do you like them sort of macro zoomed out or kind of focused in on a specific ship? Because there's a loop in the game where you clear out some of the rubble and you repurpose the rubble and you rebuild your ship? Or are you more, let's manage the Federation from the top, or in my case, the Klingon Empire? Again, I like to play a militarist version of Stellaris. I think for those who are big Star Trek fans and who want to play the Star Trek Voyager game as the Star Trek Voyager crew and captain, I think this is great. But I want to tell the Stellaris faithful that I honestly think if you're looking for sort of, if you remember the Stellaris reskin of Star Trek that they made a game of a couple of years ago, this is not that. This is a completely separate game. And I feel like there's something missing to the game. Now again, this is just a demo, and I didn't even play all the demo. But I feel like the thing that's missing is the away missions come to you as text events. I kind of wish they came to you as like you could WASD through the planet for a little while. You know, Bethesda Game Studios tried this earlier to somewhat mixed results. I don't know. Just a thought. Perhaps there's a certain type of, you know, space travel and space game that really isn't suited for a computer game situation. I did find it interesting, but not necessarily engrossing, if that makes sense. It feels like there are things missing or perhaps yet to be bolted on. And maybe that'll come in future DLC, and maybe that'll come, you know, in the game itself. Who knows? But I think it's important to say I did have an enjoyable time in the about hour that I was able to play. But it felt a little, with the text events in the away mission, and you could, you know, there were changes you could make to the choices that mattered and all that wonderful, nice stuff. I feel like there was something missing. I feel like I wanted to WASD around on the planet. Otherwise, frankly, I feel like with the galaxy view that the game kind of has you in as you pilot around the galaxy, I feel like Stellaris does that better. I feel like that's actually where the Clausewitz engine shines. And I get it, it's a proprietary, you know, thing that they have to license to people. I understand that, but I'm just calling a shovel, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, this has been Metallic Penguin. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Star Trek Voyager game, and if you plan on getting it, which I guess brings me to would I plan on getting it. I would get it on sale. I wouldn't get it at full price, whatever that full price is. I don't think this is a AAA game by any stretch of the imagination. Not that that's a bad thing, per se, but it's not. I wouldn't expect to pay AAA prices for something like this. It's kind of, I guess, a friend of mine calls them AA games. I feel like this is probably a AA game. It's good. I mean, as long as they can get past the bug I unwittingly experienced, where apparently I didn't hit the mark exactly correct, so therefore we didn't progress forward, and I ended up basically starving and dying in the vast waste of space eventually. But it's more a story because I did that 3 or 4 times, so it's basically easy to soft lock the game, is what I'm saying. Anyway, this has been Metallic Penguin, and please comment below whether or not you plan on getting Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. I certainly am going to wait until I see if the bug that I encountered is still there, because I did the same thing every time, except in the screen I took my time, I gathered resources, which I suppose, okay, let's talk about the mechanics of the game. You're gathering resources, you're gathering various different types of resources to power the warp engine, to build things you're going to need to build later. You're also clearing out rubble from an attack, and you're rebuilding your ship, essentially. So you have ship management with exploration, and apparently there's some combat that I never actually got to. But I thought, basically, as long as the bug I encountered is fixed, I think it's a basically good time. I just wouldn't necessarily pay full price. The selling point of the game is essentially that you can redo the voyage that Catherine Janeway made, making different choices and therefore changing canon. And as, a fan of Star Trek, I think that's so cool. I just want them to execute it correctly. What genre would this be? Well, it's a management sim, and there's some combat. And depending on how the combat would go and the modifications and that would go. And also, if you remember, in Star Trek Voyager, they did actually make exterior modifications to the ship. And I wonder if they're going to allow you to do that later. And what kind of missions are you going to be able to go on? Because apparently you got to go on away missions. But it would be really annoying if you're meeting the Borg only through text events. Like that would be kind of a cop-out to me. Anyway, this has been Metallic Penguin. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful and amazing day. Okay, bye-bye.